So I wanted to make a video going in depth about a question that I was asked a little while ago, and I gave a short response, but I figure I can give a little more insight into what I think about morality. The question was, do you think morality is objective or based upon perception? Now, I don't think there is such a thing as being purely objective. Being object or tripping over my own words. I don't believe morality is strictly objective. I feel like it is based on one's perspective. I do think, however, that there are some things that should be objectively wrong. For instance, it is wrong to kill. It is wrong to sexually assault someone. It is wrong to assault someone. The only time you should ever actually physically engage with someone is if they are trying to harm you or your property. So those are a few things that I think we can all agree on that we should abide by. But I feel like, in given certain situations, your morality, your moral compass is going to be different than someone else's. For instance, I gave a scenario a while back, and actually one of you answered basically the same way that I would answer. And the question was, suppose you're given a variant of the trolley problem, right? Let's say you have the power to, let's say you have two separate train tracks, right? There's a train coming along, the train tracks split off. On one set of tracks, you have 5 people tied up on the train tracks. They can't move, they can't escape, so they're at your mercy. On the other track, you have one single person tied up, and they are also trapped as well. You have the option of choosing either to have the train go on the track where the 5 people are and kill those people, or you have the track where it goes and it runs over the one person. But here is the twist that I gave with the question. Suppose you know that the one person on the other track, that one single person, has a greater intellect and is capable of a lot of different things, achieving a lot of different things for humanity overall versus the other 5 people. And even that is subjective in and of itself. You can argue that. But let's just say, we can all agree on maybe that one statement somehow. Would you still choose the one person, or would you choose the 5 people? To which, this was one person's answer, and I agree with their answer, but I don't feel like there's a right or wrong answer. I feel like it's just based on your own perception. Basically what you feel is the right thing to do. Because no matter what, if you feel like it's the right thing to do in this scenario, you're still saving a life or lives. It really wouldn't matter. Granted, we could go on more about this, but the answer that was given was that they would choose to run over the one person. And, the reason being is that the other 5 people, we don't know their potential and we don't know their children's potential. So overall, it's best to save the group as a whole and let them continue on with their lives. And who knows what they're capable of achieving anyway. Whereas you're putting all of your bets on one person in the hopes that they will change the course of history, for better, hopefully. But that was an interesting statement that they gave. They didn't state it for that reason alone. At least I don't recall that they stated it for that reason. But we both have the same answer, basically. So, if the trolley problem were given the perspective that, let's say, I was on the train tracks, right? And you have 5 other people who are, just normal everyday people on the other, then I would still agree, save the 5 people, because you don't know what their future is. You don't know what their children's future would be, or their children's children's future. It's like that's a case where, morality in this case would depend on perspective. Like what do you think is the right thing to do? Some people might choose to save the 5 people. Some people might choose to save the one person because they feel like, in this case, the person who has a greater intellect and greater potential should have the chance to live and actually prove themselves, which you can give your own arguments there. There are other situations where you can, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, at least not at the moment, but there are other situations where we kind of look at things in the lens of, is it right or wrong to do? And your definition of right and your definition of wrong is going to vary. I think, however, there are some things there are some issues that are, morally speaking, objective. Like, it is more, from a moral standpoint, it is wrong to kill. It is wrong to steal. I mean, then again, it depends on your perspective again, because if someone's stealing food and they don't have any money and they don't have any job and they've tried everything they could to do right, that's their only alternative. That's their only option. I really wouldn't fault them for doing that. But I'd say if you have the means to pay for something, right, and you just choose to steal it anyway, then I feel like that's wrong. We can also agree that, assault of any kind is wrong, unless, of course, you are defending yourself. Defending yourself or defending your property. Depending on where you live, there are different laws, different rules for that. Where I live in Texas, if I recall, there's the Castle Doctrine, where if your life or property is being threatened, you have the right to use lethal force. So there's that. But there are, objectively speaking, a few issues, a few societal problems that we can agree, or a few instances, a few cases that are objectively wrong. It's wrong to kill, it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to assault. Those are just a few things I'm listing off. There are other issues that are more minor, where the lens of right and wrong is a little tricky. So, hopefully I made sense of this explanation. Also, I apologize. I just got home and I took my nighttime edible, so it's having a slight effect. But that's my view on morality. I feel like there are some things that are, objectively right and wrong. I feel like that we can all agree on that. But I feel like when we talk about right and wrong and we talk about our decisions, that varies on perspective. Some of you might choose something that you view as right and I view as wrong. And there are some things that I might do that I might feel is right, but the rest of you might feel is wrong. And that's okay. We're all going to have our different viewpoints. As long as, of course, you're not going against the objective things that I talked about. It's objectively wrong to kill. It's objectively wrong to steal. It's objectively wrong to assault. If you do those things, and like I stated before, you are not defending yourself, you are not protecting your property, let's say, then, yeah, you are objectively being bad. And in that case, you are also objectively a bad person. So, but anyway, I hope that explanation was a little clear. Granted, I didn't really need to use the example, but I felt like the example was just to be a little illustrative about how, your view of right and wrong can vary given certain situations. So, and I think that's also why there are times where I don't feel like I'm a good person, because there are some things I do that I feel are right, logically speaking, but might not be right for everyone else. Now, I don't know, how many people I can go out there and tell these things to and would say that I'm in the right or I'm in the wrong. That's going to be impossible to do, but, that's just my assumption that, maybe at times I'm not a good person. There are times where I am a good person, but there are also times where I'm not a good person. I think as long as we learn to recognize that and move forward, I think we'll be better off. So, but anyway, that's it for just this talk. And I'll talk to you guys later.